Welcome to the Minds Capital Podcast, the show devoted to the growing world of independent sponsors and entrepreneurial private equity. I'm Will Smith, here with my partners in Minds Capital, Max Lummis and Nicholas James. Today's conversation is with Andrew McDonald of Fourco Holdings. Nicholas, what was the takeaway you had from our conversation with Andrew?
Andrew was just an incredible source of wisdom, and he had so many analogies. It was just made for a really fun interview. Here we heard about guilty criminals who go free, bluebirds of accidents, and sex drive analogies, and it was just really a lot of fun. One thing he made a very good case for, and we have had people on this podcast who have vouched for long-term and permanent holds, and people who have vouched for standard 5-year timeframes. And we hear good, compelling arguments for both. Andrew argues eloquently for long-term holds. He's pragmatic, of course, in that he says things can happen, strategics can come in, and you might want to sell. So he's not saying he will hold forever regardless, but he is advocating for long-term holds because, as he says, deals are hard to find, they are hard to close, and then they are hard to staff. So if you're able to do all of those things, he says, ride the good asset until you have maybe a bluebird event, which is what he calls a happy accident, meaning something happens in the market where the multiples skyrocket for an interim period, or a strategic buyer just really needs exactly your asset. These things can happen. There is upside, option value in owning a good asset. And so he is arguing for that, and I think made a good case for it. And then, of course, he will also bring up the point of the longer you hold something, you will really see the effects of compounding revenue. So I thought it was compelling and also a good fit with what he's been doing. His first company they acquired 11 years ago, and they recently sold it after 11 years, but it was a long-term hold, and it was a very steady business that they were able to accelerate modestly, but over the course of 11 years, they had an outstanding MOIC, I think north of 10x, I think we learned, Will. The other aspect about this interview that was fun was just the portfolio that he's built. He's built a portfolio of fireworks, drones, and confetti, and more. And it was just, it's not often that you hear about such, consumer-oriented, fun products every day. So yeah, it was a great time. Thank you, Andrew, for coming on.
He refers to Buffett and Munger a number of times. And one of the things that he says about Munger is that he cites some interview with Munger where Charlie Munger was asked about making money or something. And Charlie Munger's response was, I didn't do this to optimize for my wealth. I did this to optimize for freedom. I wanted to be able to control my day, control my time, control where I directed my attention. And Andrew said the same thing when we asked him about, Andrew, you have this track record now. You've had one really strong exit, and you have this other business that's doing really well. Why not raise money and go bigger? He's had a single investor to date who's kind of a quasi partner, really. But he hasn't gone out and tried to raise more money, though he feels the temptation sometimes. And his answer was, because I want to optimize for my freedom. I don't want all of the additional baggage that comes with raising institutional or any investor capital. So it reminds me of how we often talk about flexibility. And so one of the things that the independent sponsor model is so known for is flexibility. These are our cousins, and Andrew's embrace of freedom is kind of an extreme version of the flexibility point that is often made by independent sponsors. So I really enjoyed his story and hearing how he's built what he's built. Max, any takeaways you had?
This was a fun episode. Andrew was really entertaining. And I really liked when he was discussing the fireworks business and how they sort of just stumbled upon basically two new businesses while running that company. The first one being importing and selling confetti. What a simple idea, but what a great idea that once you have this retail platform where you're selling fireworks and you have customers, thinking about what else can you sell to them. And it was fun to hear how big that business got, basically as a startup within the business that he acquired, which then led to the drone business, which they which they effectively started up, which is now very successful. So it was just a testament to entrepreneurship, I think. And it was fun to hear that you can still be very entrepreneurial and basically create new businesses within a platform, given the right opportunity. So that was fun and inspiring.
Totally agree. I also loved that point. Well, before we get to our interview with Andrew, a reminder that at Minds Capital, we invest equity into independent sponsor-led acquisitions. Our check size is $1 to $3 million, and we average about a commitment a month. So if you're a sponsor raising equity for a platform acquisition, submit your deal to us via our website at mindscapital.co. Or if you're interested in investing in Minds Capital as an LP, there's a pre-registration form on our website for investors. So if you're accredited or can become accredited, fill out that form to be kept in the loop on future raises. That's at mindscapital.co. Here is the Minds Capital Podcast interview with Andrew McDonald of Fourco Holdings. Enjoy. Welcome to the Minds Capital Podcast, your connection to the growing world of independent sponsors and entrepreneurial private equity. We are your hosts, Will Smith and Nicholas James. Independent sponsors need a legal team that understands the model and knows the players. Platt Richmond, a Dallas-based boutique law firm, has deep experience in guiding independent sponsors through the complexities of their acquisitions. The team at Platt Richmond provides support on all aspects of your transaction, from structuring and diligence to financing and securities compliance. They also represent stakeholders throughout the ecosystem: capital providers, lenders, family offices, sellers, management teams, which gives them a unique 360-degree perspective on the sponsor model that ensures a seamless process for your transaction. Partner with Platt Richmond to focus on what you do best: finding and executing great deals. Visit plattrichmond.com today to learn more. That's Platt with 2 T's, Platt, Richmond.com. Andrew McDonald of Fourco Holdings is your neighbor down the street who happens to buy small businesses. He lives in Fort Worth, Texas, and acquired his first business in 2015. We'll spend time discussing that deal, which Andrew recently exited for more than a 10x MOIC. Andrew's portfolio today consists of a Confetti business, a fireworks business, a drones business, and some FedEx routes. So 4th of July just passed. We'll get into that. Andrew has bootstrapped and funded their Holdco entirely with cash flow from operations. So the success of that initial platform ensured that the only fundraise Andrew ever did was the initial $500,000 to get into that first acquisition. Andrew McDonald, welcome to the Minds Capital Podcast.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Andrew, part of your origin story was interviewing for a job at a private equity firm. And rather than proceed with the interview, you walked out of the waiting room and haven't looked back. Can you recount that story and how it was that led you to become an independent sponsor?
Yeah, so I just kind of always been an entrepreneurial kid looking for ways to make money. So when I was in school, thought it would be a good idea to get a few degrees. So did JD, MBA, and master's in finance, and came out and went to work for a small investment bank. Was the first stop, and then worked for a group of guys, a family, putting lower middle market deals together. And then I thought the next natural stop for me would be to private equity shop. So I was interviewing, or going in to interview, at one of the firms here in Fort Worth, and a kind of friend, mentor who worked there came to meet me in the conference room when I got there and said, "Hey man, you're not interviewing today. I just know you too well. I know where you want to be. I know your aptitudes. You've kind of got the deal flow. You know how to put these deals together. Just go do it now. So, yeah, in the span of a few weeks, that conversation and a few others happened where just the right doors were opened, the right doors were closed, and I knew it was the right thing to go kind of walk the plank, so to speak, and yeah, go find a business, live on rice and beans for a while.
It's a really great story. And so I guess the question for the listeners is, what can they learn from that? What did either that former friend, sorry, who was the person who said that to you in the conference room?
Yeah, it was a kind of a
Colleague,
friend mentor who had was working at that private equity firm a few years older.
So what had he seen in you? Is it, can we extrapolate from his observation about you that maybe most people overestimate how much experience they need in private equity proper before going out to do deals on their own?
Yeah, it's always hard to reflect on yourselves, but I think I can speak to like what I see in other guys when I encourage them to go do the same thing. And I think it's just that really strong desire to go find a business, almost like, sorry to be crass, but like the desire to do that and own your own business, I think needs to be, as strong as the desire to like to have sex. Like it just needs to be burning within you. Uh, I think he may have also seen, and what I see in other guys is just knew with a really strong conviction that like the corporate environment was not for me. Even if it was the investments world and it was a private equity shop, that just something in the personality or temperament, you can just kind of tell that person needs to go do it on their own.
Mm-hmm. And so, in other words, your kind of natural entrepreneurialism that you had been doing entrepreneurial this and that for a long time.
Yes. Yep. I think that's it.
Yeah. Which may differentiate you actually from some listeners, from other private equity folks who go out and become independent sponsors for different reasons. Maybe it's a more practical reason that they see that the financial rewards could be better than hoping to make partners someday. So it's not so much about an entrepreneurial energy as it is about a calculated risk assessment, and they choose one path over the other. You were kind of cut from a certain cloth, it sounds like.
Yes. Yeah. And I think speaking on that, everybody can do it various different ways. And there's plenty of different backgrounds. I think when somebody kind of maybe comes from the non-traditional path like me, you kind of have to burn your own path forward.
Mm. And you had said to us, you touched on it here, but you'd said to us in more detail in the pre-call that you got the JD and kind of you needed some pedigree, you felt, to be taken seriously in the market. It was right. It was really almost a marketing decision more than your own. You were never going to go be an attorney. And you knew you were going to want to start doing deals pretty early on, meaning you were going to be a 20-something out there trying to buy businesses. And so having a JD would help give you the credibility you lacked in gray hair, let's say. Talk about that and whether or not you prescribe the same to others.
Yeah, it was kind of I think of a few different things. One was just naturally curious, love to learn. So getting those degrees was almost fun at the time, just all the new things you're learning about how the world works. And yeah, I knew that or hoped that being a young guy out in the market, that having a JD and an MBA, it just like adds some polish. I think some folks look at it and think, all right, this person maybe is smarter than they really are, because I'm not that smart of a guy, but I think it just adds a little bit of credibility. And during that time when I was out looking for a business, an older, wiser guy had told me, he said, hey, when they're going to ask you your age, they're going to go, hey, young buck, what's your age? Don't tell them your age. Just say you claim 30. Because then they'll kind of get confused and they won't know whether you're 26 claiming 30 or you're 35 claiming that you're younger than you are. So that was the line I stuck to. And that combined with a law degree and a business degree, I think helped move some of those conversations along and helped, I think, me be taken a little bit more seriously than might have been otherwise.
That is hilarious. It's like totally ambiguous what you even mean by claiming 30.
Yes.
So the listener is left feeling like, wait, Does that mean more or less? And you want them to just remain confused. So
Yes, and just quickly move the conversation on, and then the age question is forgotten.
But on the degree thing, the degree hoarding piece, did you find that it had value out in the market in terms of presenting yourself with more credibility? Did you ever get a sense one way or the other?
Yes, yeah. I think it did. There's I think plenty of instances where there were, anyone from the service providers we're working with, or a business broker, or even a business owner that, is kind of looks at it and goes, well, this kid might be a whippersnapper. He's, obviously was able to, I think it does show that you were able to, bear down and commit to getting something done.
Sure.
And grinding through those degrees. So yeah, it definitely helped in some aspects with some people. Others, maybe not so much.
Okay, so 2015 is the first deal which you just exited. So would love to hear, let's hear the origin of that deal, about that $500,000 investment and how that's been the only investment to date. If you would, please, with the story.
Yeah, so was out looking for somewhere between a year or two, and had a gig that kind of kept me going as a part-time operating partner with some guys in town. So had some cash flow, was able to get out and network, and a deal, you never know where they're going to come from. I believe it was a banker who we didn't even work with, introduced me to the CFO of this company that we ended up buying. Met with them, an initial look at the financials, it didn't really look that great, but as we know, you really got to dig in and figure out the add backs and efficiencies, and there's just so much more to glean from those businesses than just that first look. So kept at it, and eventually we got to making an offer and submitting an LOI to the owner, and he didn't feel like it was enough, and then get a call back 6 months later that he's ready to do it for that price. So we jumped into diligence and attacked it and closed it in 2016. The way we structured it, we got really fortunate. I always think of that Charlie Munger quote that he says, where he goes, or it may have been Warren Buffett, somebody said, if you keep a punch card in the back of your pocket and you just wait for these deals that are going to be a home run, you're going to be able to punch it a handful of times in your life. And this was very thankful that early in the career I was able to see one of these moments where it's like, man, there's no way we're taking a zero on this. There's no way we're losing money. We financed it $500,000 with equity through a partner of mine, and then $5.5 million of bank debt. And the business had $1.5 million of EBITDA. So really stretching that senior bank limit, kind of past the point that most of them are comfortable or that they'll allow for. And we were able to do that because we found out that there was a lot of excess AR and inventory on the balance sheet, and there was a division that was not performing well. So we get in, we bring those.
Andrew, what was the business, please?
Oh, Workwear safety shoes. So it is a business that goes into big corporate, well, really small, medium, but really focus on those larger corporations where their employees, mandated by OSHA, have to have safety footwear, safety equipment that matches the hazards of their environment. So real quickly to explain the business, pretend you're the plant manager of 1,000-person food processing plant. And you've got 10 new hires a week. You've got these boots that you can't necessarily find at Walmart or your, kind of typical Western boot store. They really are a specialty shoe. There's usually some poor soul in procurement or HR that is handling that process, ordering the wrong size shoes, all that jazz. And so this business comes in and says, hey, we're going to take that all off your hands. We're going to save you money. we're going to make sure your workforce and your business is more compliant, and make sure your employees are in the right shoes so that they're kind of healthier and happier when they're standing on their feet all day in those environments.
So it was a sourcing business. It wasn't the manufacturers of the shoes themselves.
It was not the manufacturers, kind of a true value add distributor. And then we did end up developing an in-house brand and getting it manufactured in China. That was a small portion of the business. But yeah, really just distributing all the big names that everybody would know, kind of the Red Wing, Cat, Wolverine, Ariat. They've all got safety versions of their boots.
Newly acquired and PE-owned companies are high-value targets. Hackers time their attacks when teams are distracted by the deal, exactly when a breach can stall operations, bleed cash, and blow the thesis. Enzo Technologies is your full-service IT MSP for post-close stability. They assess your target, surface the biggest risks in plain English, and give you a day 1 through 30 plan to cut exposure, prevent downtime, and even find cost takeouts like bloated telecom bills. Check out enzotechnologies.com, INZO, or email CEO Nick Akers directly at nick@enzotechnologies.com. Having acquired Enzo himself, Nick understands the challenges sponsors and searchers face when transitioning a business. So make sure to tell him you're an independent sponsor and listener of the Minds Capital podcast. nick@enzotechnologies.com.
Okay, so returning to the deal structure and the lender tolerating what seems like a lot of debt because there was a lot of inventory in an underperforming unit. Pick us up from there.
Yeah, so we were within the first 12 to 18 months, we were really able to bring those AR days outstanding. I mean, I think we almost cut them in half and freed up a bunch of cash flow. The inventory, we reduced by about 25%. And then, cutting that non-performing division freed up all the inventory that was assigned to that. And that thing was losing quite a bit of money per month. So flushing all those things through, we get to, month 12, month 18, somewhere in there. And we have returned all of our capital to the partner who graciously backed me. And then we were able to take some of the rest and start paying down debt and making dividends from there.
Wow. And what were your economics of was this an independent sponsor structured deal? It already sounds like not at all, actually. So how was it structured, and how would you, for this audience, this independent sponsor audience, map what you were doing onto what they do?
Yeah, I was very fortunate that there was a friend a few years older than me that had made quite a bit of money and is a real estate developer and operator. And he and I were grabbing beers and meeting coffee, once a month, and it just clicked. And maybe after a year or so, he looked at me and he goes, "Andrew, I'll back you on anything you do. I want to bet on you," which was so much different than what most other folks say in the market, which is, "Hey, what are you working on? Do you have a deal? Let's work on a deal together." And he was really more, "Hey, I want to bet on you." So it was a nice confidence boost. And it's been a great, fruitful partnership. But I give you that color to explain that really he and I are the type of guys that sit down and get on a whiteboard and go, just what makes sense for us. And so for this particular deal, with how quickly we thought we were going to be able to return capital and how safe the deal felt. Once he got a certain return, we were split the business 50-50. So got, some outsized economics, but it also felt, I think, looking back, hindsight 2020, it was also, kind of a special deal to come across.
You mentioned how you had spent time reducing the inventory and the days sales outstanding on the accounts receivable. Could you walk us through how you did this, and also why is that so important?
Yeah, it is one of the things that can be overlooked, but I always, just go back to the simplest example is that when you walk into the warehouse and those boots or whatever product is sitting on the shelves, I think it really helps to get in the mentality of like, no, that is a $100 bill sitting there. That pair of boots is a $100 bill. And if you can find a way to not hold that pair of boots in inventory, you really do free up that money. So with inventory, what we did is there are a bunch of different safety features. There are a bunch of different styles, colors. I mean, you can really have SKU creep in a business like this and have way too many styles on hand. We reduced the amount of styles that we had, kind of took out some of those non-performing styles. We also got better at kind of our inventory management. So, kind of the pull system where we just got better at our points of sale of not having quite so much inventory there on hand and having a more efficient warehouse and distribution system that can get those boots out. So those were the main things, reducing SKUs and just getting better at managing the overall inventory. And then for the AR, it was one of those things that we find a lot of times in businesses that have been owned for decades by somebody who's gotten comfortable. They'd really never asked a lot of their customers to be paid sooner or on their payables to ask to pay later. So that from what I recall, it being now a decade ago, it was just a lot of conversations of, hey, we noticed that we're on, net 120. We really, need to get moved to net 60 or net 90 on the AR. And yeah, just those things. It was it sounds a lot simpler than it is. It is a lot of hard work and takes a long time to flush that through. But it was really just those little tweaks and dials that we moved.
You talk about the punch card in the back pocket, where a handful of times you're going to come across deals that are so special that you know it. And that sounds great, but how did a small specialty distribution company fit that bill? What was it about it that made it an obvious punch card investment opportunity?
Yeah. One of the things that really jumped off the page at me is that the CFO was pulling a bunch of reports for me. I think it was tax returns. And I said, hey, how far back do you have in there? And she said something to the effect of like, yeah, back to 1999. I was like, can you just drop all those in the folder? I'm just curious. The business, so went back and looked at the business tax return wise from 1999 to 2015. And the business had grown in between 2 and 4% every single year. No less, no more. And I thought, okay, I'm 24, 25. I don't know what I'm doing. Hopefully this all works out. But seeing that level of consistency in the business, I was like, even an idiot like me can't mess this up. There were a few other things, Nicholas, like no customer was more than 1% of revenue. The customer's retention rate was over 99% every year. What else was there? There was a few things like that where it was like, whoa, kind of on that diligence checklist of the 10 top boxes you want to check. This thing's checking a whole lot of them.
Well, Andrew, it also sounds like you were price disciplined because you'd made this offer. They said no. And then you just waited or did not. I mean, I guess thought the deal was dead. And then they came back 6 months later. So you probably liked your price once they came back to you because it's what you'd originally offered and not increased it.
Yes. Yeah. And that's something that's kind of been a theme throughout the past decade with our business acquisitions, is just being really disciplined with that. We almost look at it like the U.S. justice system, and that the U.S. justice system lets a lot of guilty people go free. But we do that because we want to make sure that we do not incarcerate people who have not committed a crime. I think that has happened plenty of times with us acquiring businesses, that we let some good ones slip through that we probably could have paid a little bit more for. But we just kind of stick to it. And when we're working with the owners, we always just want to offer something that's fair. We kind of see it as like a home purchase, that if somebody's home is worth $400,000, we want to settle in between somewhere 380 to 420, just plus or minus a little bit on each side. And don't want to get into the kind of seduction of always up in the offer. We've been a part of some of those processes, as we all have, where the really good bankers out there can just get you to increase it a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, change some terms. And then you look back in the rearview mirror and you go, whoa, we're nowhere near where we started. How do we get here? And we just do our best. It's a lot easier said than done, but try our best to stay diligent and stick to where we feel comfortable.
Well, part of price discipline is also correlated, I guess, to the hold period or what you expect the hold period to be. Are you doing kind of typical 5-year holds? Are you doing indefinite holds? What's the program?
Yeah, since it's our own capital, these deals are so hard to find. They are so difficult to close. Getting the right people in the right seats on the bus is its own challenge, that once we've got a hold of a good one, we want to ride that out and kind of stick it out for those like happy accidents to take place, where you catch a bluebird year, or we don't want to have to keep churning and go finding more businesses to buy every year. So yeah, we like to hold it for the long term, and then we're really looking for things that we believe are not going to change in the next decade, which was previous few years was kind of running it through the Amazon and Uber model of, is something like Uber or Amazon going to disrupt this business? And we would try to find businesses where the answer was no. And then now I think it's even amplified with AI, that you really need to look at it and make sure that there isn't going to be some huge disruption. So yeah, we would like to own for as long as we can. That's not to say that we won't own a business for a few years and get the right offer, right circumstance to get out. But our intent is to find good businesses that we can hold practically forever.
I would think that would make you more comfortable offering an extra turn in your offer to buy a business, that it would make you a little bit less disciplined, because if you're going to hold it for that much longer, a half turn extra on your entry price has that much less of an impact.
Yeah, we stay pretty disciplined, and it seems to what we found is just some good alignment, that when we find the right owner and potentially right business broker that really understands kind of who we are in the long-term hold, it just clicks with the owner, and that we're really trying to find the guys that are, I know everyone says this, but the guys that really are concerned about that continuity, that would prefer not to sell to a PE group or a competitor and have their employee base, kind of fired and wiped away and the name changed and all that. So once we click with somebody, the price doesn't a lot of times seem to be the biggest issue.
And so to that point, how do you position yourself in the market to owners and to this audience, to other independent sponsors, would-be independent sponsors? Do you consider yourself that? What are the economics of the deals that you've subsequently done? Give us kind of what are you building? Did you have a particular strategy or not? Were you just kind of going as the deals presented themselves? Put all of that to you.
Yeah. I think I told you all this on the pre-call, that we really, and you had said it in the intro, that we are trying to be the guys from down the street, that we really want to find these owners that, like I said, don't want to sell to private equity, don't want to sell to a strategic. They really just want their business to continue, and we just see ourselves as the next steward of that business. Somebody I'm close to has always told me that the U-Haul does not follow the hearse. So you're not taking it with you. It's not really yours. So, you've just got it while your limited time here on this earth. And to your question of, where we were headed, where we are headed, kind of what the overall plan was, is, in my mind, there is the thoughts of, let's go get 10 businesses, 20 businesses. Let's go see what we can do. But it really has been on when the good right deal comes across the desk. I think we probably could push it and find some more deals, but we do like to get involved with our businesses and really know them, which takes up quite a bit of our time to where we just can't be doing acquisitions and add-ons all the time. So as an example there, when we buy a business, we really like to spend 6 months to a year involved with the business for 2, 3, 4 days a week. So I really get to see the sales cycles. I get to know the people, go to the conferences, trade shows, and get to know kind of how the market works and who the players are so that I can be a more effective owner. My biggest fear is being like that bright idea fairy in the board meetings where I'm throwing out ideas that, the people running the business kind of just smirk at, knowing that, hey, man, if you would have spent just a few weeks really involved with this business, you would know that that's not a great idea. So I'm trying to not get in their way, first of all, but then trying to be additive where our skill sets lie, where we really can kind of help them out or take some things off their plate. So kind of where we're headed, it's just kind of take it day by day. I think like everybody in this industry would love to have more deals. It's as y'all know, it's just gotten really, really competitive. So we're just trying to stay diligent and put the capital to work as best we can.
It started with a $500,000 equity injection from another partner of yours. Is he still a partner, or were you just on that one deal and since then you've been able to live off of dividends and do all of these deals bootstrapped in a way since then?
We've stuck together. We've got a great relationship. I mean, it's almost like he's an older brother, a cousin at this point. Just the kind of the way we get along and the way our personalities gel around these deals. There's, as y'all know, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with these businesses. There are a lot of tense moments, and he and I think he described at one time our relationship that if there was a deal that went bad and there was a pile of money left on the table, we both would be pushing it towards the other person of like, no, I'm good, you take it, which is, kind of in the heat of the moment of those deals. I think that's, it is truly hard to find. So we have stuck together. We are partners on every deal I've done, and don't anticipate that changing. He has just been more fair to me and more kind to me than I could have ever expected. So it's a good, fruitful relationship.
Talk about the strategy behind not doing more fundraising, because you now have a track record. You have probably more deal flow than you've had because these things tend to compound, but yet you have stayed disciplined and limited really to what you've been able to do with the cash flows and the dividends from the initial early businesses. So how do you think about this? And maybe it's also a continuous decision point, the point of just staying bootstrapped, using your own cash flow to build an empire versus scaling faster by taking and doing bigger deals by taking outside equity again.
Yeah, it is a continuous thing. You catch me on the right day and I'll tell you that I'm going to, go raise money and go get a lot more deals done. Whenever this comes up and I think through it or journal or I'm talking to people about it, where I always go back to, and this just fits my personality. It's not the answer for everybody, but it's when Charlie Munger was asked by a reporter at some point, why did you leave your legal career? Were you always so focused on making so much money? And he said, no, you got it wrong. It was something to the effect of, you got it wrong. It was never about the money. I wanted freedom. I wanted control of my schedule. And that really is what drives me is, not having a 26-year-old private equity associate looking over my shoulder, all the time, of really being able to blaze my own path and be in control of what I'm working on. And so raising that outside capital or raising a small fund, just all the obligations that go along with that. I would treat that, with like it's my own money. And that would just take a lot of time and I think kind of resources for me to handle all that. Or I'd have to hire a few people, and that would also be just a different challenge. So I've just found something that works for me for now, and that may change in the future. But yeah, that's how it's worked so far.
But you do have obligations as an owner of these businesses, so it's not like you're obligation free. But there's something different about the obligations to investors. Of course, that's much more of that's a different dynamic than obligations to your employees and folks in the business. But it is interesting, the nature of those obligations, how one feels like a boss and the other doesn't. But it's not like you're as obligation free as it might seem.
No. With employees in these businesses, you want to make sure you're on the ball and helping them out. And yeah, there are a lot of obligations that pop up, but they're fun. That feeling like you're a part of the team with those guys is I enjoy it.
Going back to Workwear safety shoes, so you said you bought it. It was a punch card kind of deal. It was growing at 3% per year. Can you build a bridge from there to the recent exit at north of 10x MOIC?
Yeah, we were able to continue to grow it at that rate and higher most years. And, everybody had some setbacks during COVID, but yeah, we're able to boost that growth to close to the high single digits. There was also a lot of efficiencies gained just by having new ownership and new blood in there and just kind of breathing new life into the business and staying on top of expenses. So we were able to improve the EBITDA margin. And then it was the exit. We thought we were going to own that business forever. It was a good business that spit off dividends and was kind of the cash cow for our portfolio to go do other things. And we started to see some changes in the industry. One of them that I think may be good for the listeners is this is going to affect, I think, a lot of businesses and industries just more as AI is coming online. That was a pretty old school, kind of hands-on business. You got the boots, let's go fit them onto the people, let's go deliver them. There were a lot of people 10 years ago still operating with like hand tickets and fax machines. Well, now as more younger people have gotten into the workforce and they're in those positions of safety director or plant manager, they want that app or that web portal that really is built out like Amazon, where you can go in and just basically pull anything from your orders that you want. They want a lot of functionality. We were seeing a lot of those changes, and it was also an industry that, I think we see across the country or across the globe where there is just a lot of consolidation going on. And the consolidation exists for a good reason. The customers are better served when they are, there's a bigger company that's able to hit, let's say, more of their locations or more of their employees and take care of their safety needs. So it just hit one of those points where a strategic really wanted to buy us. And then there was a few of those industry factors that we looked at, and we thought, you know what, this is probably a good time to get out. And it did feel like it was the right thing for the business to be a part of a larger organization, and be able to serve the customers better. Sorry, long-winded answer, but kind of the industry changes and then a strategic really wanted us.
But it was the strategic interest that prompted the decision. So you guys didn't take it to market.
That's right. It was a strategic that, reached out to us.
Andrew, tell us about these other acquisitions. Let's go in order that you made them.
Okay. The first one after that was Illumination Fireworks. So this is a fireworks business. Everybody always thinks the roadside stands. That's not what this business does. They do all of the professional level fireworks. So the big July 4th shows, corporate events, concerts, sports is a big aspect. So, when teams running out of the tunnel, this business is doing the fog and the flames. And then when they score a touchdown or home run, the fireworks are going off the top of the stadium. So that one, it's an interesting business. Highly regulated, obviously, because you're dealing with bombs. It is highly seasonal with July 4th, and then really the football season is what drives it a lot here in Texas. All the college football teams, just spend so much money on their game productions to enhance the fan experience. And that one's a blast. I mean, it's everything from getting to go to a football game and be up close while the teams are running out of the tunnel to doing a bunch of stage effects for the Backstreet Boys concert. I mean, it's just kind of all over the board, but it's been a really fun one to be a part of. It is a really fun team there of guys who are just passionate about that industry. When we purchased that business, it had a little side business at the time. It was doing a lot of live events production where confetti was needed. And the previous owners, super sharp guys, so you know what? Why don't we just import a container of our own confetti? Let's bring it in. Let's get it for $1 a piece instead of $10 a unit. And we'll use it on our own shows and we'll start selling it to others. Well, that has taken off. It was growing 10% a year just over the years. And so we eventually decided to kind of split it off into its own division. And it now has a really good team of e-commerce experts and breaking in to retail, but it is supplying confetti for everything from just selling 1 pound at a time, maybe to a teacher doing a celebration in a classroom, all the way to selling thousands of pounds at a time for the Super Bowl. So just selling tissue paper a pound at a time. It's
what a boy. That's just like one of those businesses we often talk about where, behind everything that you interact with in the world, there's a business. And so, the confetti falling from the ceiling in a concert, somebody had to supply that and, touch it and sell it and manufacture it, et cetera. So, just, it never gets old. Seems like, so the fireworks business, this was under the fireworks business? It's the same business? How does that work?
It was a little side project within the business. The revenue got to a point where we thought, it's best to spin this out, give it its own team, all those things. So
the fireworks acquisition, the fireworks business acquisition, confetti and drones have come out of that.
They have, yes. Confetti.
Gotcha.
Spun off, and then drones. That was really the only thing we've started from scratch. One of the guys who's kind of our head Pyro guy, he's a big drone enthusiast, has been building them and racing them for decades. And he was like, man, this is the new thing coming. Let's get into it. And he and I have got a great relationship and partnership. And we put some money down, bought some drones, and it's it was somewhat of an easy decision because the whole process, kind of from soup to nuts, is very, very similar to the fireworks. So how you interact with the customer, how the day of the event goes, the payment terms, just everything. It was almost a carbon copy of the fireworks. So I've been doing that for 2 or 3 years now, and it's going well and also fun. It's just those three businesses are really a joy to be around. Using confetti as an example, I mean, you just bring up confetti or pop a confetti popper, and it just makes people smile. Like it's and that's contagious kind of throughout the businesses. Everybody's in a good mood. And then
one of the best little Apple flourishes is what is it when you say congratulations to somebody over iMessage, the confetti falls on the screen.
Oh yeah.
There's anyways some, maybe that's like 10 years old and that doesn't happen anymore, but I know I've seen it. And yeah, confetti is basically synonymous with celebration and joy.
Yes. Yep. So it's just a ton of fun.
The drone business is really interesting. Of course, you said how the kind of go to market and motion of the business is just like the fireworks business, and partly because it was also going to be the disruptor of the fireworks business. So instead of doing fireworks displays, it was going to be drone displays. I'm sure there is some of that displacement happening. So good that you're straddling both. But just curious, talk to us a little bit about, is the fireworks industry threatened by drone shows, or what? What's the future hold for how those two play together or compete?
Yeah, we thought of it as like something just fun to do, and let's find a ways to make some money off of it. But also a hedge that if this stuff does take off, which it could, let's get in there early and really solidify ourselves and with our customers of, hey, this is a good option, and please continue working with us. What we've seen, and I'm not sure I would have assigned that high to a probability of this a few years ago, is that what's turned out is that the drones have been in addition to the fireworks. I think my guess is that there's just they're not stealing fireworks dollars. I'll put it that way. The drones are an add-on, so to speak, or done in a completely different venue or setting where maybe fireworks doesn't work. So it's really, and if you could imagine with fireworks, you can't shoot them off everywhere. I mean, you're dealing with bombs, so you're kind of restricted on setbacks and where buildings and highways and flight paths are and all those things. So the drones give us another tool to be able to put up some entertainment at places and at venues that maybe can't use fireworks in the way that they want to. So we've seen it as an add-on. And it just never would have guessed that, but it's been really cool. I think my guess is that there's just something so visceral about the fireworks. Us just going through July 4th, seeing those things just explode and kind of feeling the concussion in your chest and the explosion of bright lights. I think it just touches something deep in us that's never really going to go away. The one place where we have seen it replaced is just kind of the fire danger areas, or some of the cities that maybe are a little bit more eco-friendly. So, mountain towns that maybe haven't had a good rain or snowfall, or certain parts of California where they, prefer to have a drone show and not have any of the kind of side effects of fireworks.
Sure.
Well, I don't know about DC this weekend, but I was celebrating July 4th in Boston, and they had an absolutely spectacular drone show, 1,100 drones synchronized, showing the history of the Boston Tea Party and Boston for 250 years. And then there was a fireworks after it, and that surprised me a little bit because I thought it would be one or the other. But I will say there's more of a sense of a climax, and it's more literally explosive with fireworks. And that was exciting to have as the grand finale, where the drone show was more spectacular and impressive. But talking about drones, Andrew, isn't that a very regulated industry?
It is. It operates very similar to, it operates under all the same rules as kind of aircraft. So all of our drone operators have I'm going to get the part number wrongs and the license number wrongs. I'm not even going to attempt, or they'd kill me for being an idiot. But they're all kind of licensed pilots. And so you're working with the FAA and filing very similar kind of flight plans and exemptions. So yeah, it's very similar to manned aircraft, which is good. It's a nice set of rules that everybody knows what they are and can operate accordingly.
And then we know from the ongoing geopolitical conflicts that drones are used very aggressively in military conflicts now as well. We've all thought about drones in the context of shipping and Amazon, which we haven't quite seen materialize yet. How are you more on the festive side then? And do you think we'll see more drone displays like we did across the country now for July 4th, which we've previously only seen in China?
Yes, yeah, we've all are. No, I don't want to say all. A lot of our big July 4th clients have wanted to add drones. So kind of our, I don't know, just kind of highest end clients, let's say like a big resort or one of the large cities in DFW that wants to just kind of have the big show and really wow the crowd. They're really wanting both. And what got approved this past year as well, Nicholas, is putting Pyro on the drones. So if you've seen any clips of that, you can put kind of sparklers on the drone. So let's say you did a drone rocket, USA rocket taking off, the back end you can show, like a fire blast coming out. So they really have kind of intertwined themselves. But I think you will see it more and more because you can just tell such a good story with the drones, and there's sponsorship opportunities, and you can just really get some messages across with drones that you obviously can't with fireworks.
So after the fireworks / drone / confetti business, you have FedEx routes,
Yes.
right? And when was the fireworks business acquired, and when was the FedEx routes business acquired?
Fireworks was 2019, and the first FedEx routes were acquired at the very end of 2021 or the very beginning of 2022.
Okay. And where does aggregate revenue stand from across the portfolio, which I guess today is the fireworks business and the FedEx business because you sold workwear safety shoes?
Yes. Before workwear was sold, it was at 55, in between 50 and 55. And that was a large chunk of it. That was about half. So we're closer to 30 today.
And so getting to 55 million in acquired revenue or acquired and then grown revenue from a $500,000 investment is pretty remarkable. That's why we're calling you a bootstrapped Holdco. What can we take from that? Well, is we'll have independent sponsors listening to this podcast, but you also talk to a lot of searchers. The entrepreneurship through acquisition style folks are reaching out to you often. Which is a different model of buying businesses. What can we learn from how much revenue you've acquired for such a little bit of equity?
Yeah. There's probably a few different things. The thing that always jumps out to me is that longer term hold period. Being able to hold a business for 10 plus years, you open yourselves up to some happy accidents. You also just kind of get the compounding effect of revenue increasing year over year. Remember someone pointed this out to me one time. They said, think about the guys that that have done really well. They either had some crazy exit at some point, usually after years of toiling away at something, or if they're the guy that's like purely living off dividends and distributions, most of the time they're a guy that has owned 1, 2, 3 businesses for a really long time. So I think it's that our industry sets up the incentives a lot of times to get in and get out and hit that hurdle and take your share of the proceeds. And if someone was out there hearing my story and saying, hey, how could I, mimic or follow that in a certain way? I think probably the biggest thing would be setting up the incentives, since that drives so much behavior. Set up those incentives in a way that, maybe we're not so focused on IRR, and that the hurdles or whatever metrics you need to set in there with an investor makes sense for a long-term hold, and don't only click in at exit. And I think another thing that's helped us, Will, is that going back to how disciplined we are on the acquisition and really not budging much from the price that we think is fair, by not overpaying, allows us to not, that extra turn. Why don't you pay the extra turn if you're holding it for 10 years? Yeah. Well, where we usually land on that value is that, it allows us to do that appropriate amount of debt, appropriate amount of equity, and we can start doing distributions right away or have that cash flow. And we're not so stuck to let's lever this thing up as much as we can. Let's get the mezz group in as well. And let's just optimize this thing for that IRR. I don't want it to come across that there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just how to your question of how I think my story has come about. I think it's that longevity, setting everything up to be focused on that 10-year hold.
And when you took the $500,000 from your sponsor, I want to say, but that will confuse that word, from the guy who backed you and who you now have this long-standing, great working relationship with, his sense of the time horizon was long. Obviously, you guys were aligned on that. He didn't come at this from a kind of institutional capital perspective where he wanted to see his return back and his money back in 5 years.
That's right. And I think he got a little bit of the best of both worlds, or we both did going into it, knowing that we were going to be able to return capital most likely with the AR and inventory, just them being so heavy on those assets. But yeah, he knew. I remember this may be helpful at the time. He and I knew a friend was at a private equity group, and they had bought some really cool company in Texas and grown it to be the largest XYZ of Texas. And it was a great business, and they had doubled EBITDA, and then they sold it like in year 4. And I remember using that example to him of like, that business, we both know it. Why would you sell that thing? Let's set this up where we can potentially own that when we're 80 years old. And it has been, just a good cash generating vehicle for us. So we clicked early on, and we're on the same page about that horizon.
Andrew, part of the reason that sponsors, like, everybody understands the compounding nature of long-term hold, and yet still few people actually go that way. And part of the reason, at least for somebody earlier in their career, is that they're so hot and bothered to have an exit, is so that they can at least put some money on their own personal balance sheet, right? To get that first liquidity event, and then they can breathe, take their time with the rest of their investments or their career even. Is that what has happened to you now that you've had a liquidity event? Or were your dividends strong enough coming out of your acquisitions all this time since 2015 that you've been perfectly comfortable the whole time? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been the ups and downs. And as we all know from human nature, when is enough? But it's helped me throughout the process just be at peace and know that money can improve some things, but it doesn't necessarily change your happiness. So just trying to be as grounded as I could throughout the process, on the good days and the bad days, on the days when we were taking nice healthy distributions, and then during, let's say, COVID, when we're not. To answer the question directly, was able to provide a living for myself and my family. I've got wife and 5 children, ages 4 through 9. So it's quite a burden over here in a good way, all fun. But yes, I've been able to provide a good living, and this exit has changed things, has provided some breathing room, and I think potentially the kind of trajectory of Fourco and our investments from here could change.
And you weren't tempted before to sell your first acquisition for the reason that I said, that, I mean, you've got so many mouths to feed, to just have a liquidity event, just to know that the outcome of this one is locked in, make a few dollars, and then turn your attention to buying and holding for the long term. You didn't feel that pressure. You were always on the long term hold, even before ever having a liquidity event.
Definitely felt that pressure. I think it's just natural to say, man, I would love to see that money in the bank account right now. But I think what just always won out in those kind of thoughts in my head and those machinations is, let's just stick to the long-term hold. Let's stick to the plan. Let's wait until we really feel the conviction that it's the right time to exit. Very difficult. I mean, as y'all know, when there's the opportunity to sell or the thoughts of selling, your mind can really run wild on how that money will change your life or your circumstances. But yeah, I've just tried to stay committed.
So yeah, it's like the thing that Buffett has always said about so much of this game is about temperament more than, IQ or whatever else. Can you kind of control your own emotions around investing?
It's hard.
As I said, Andrew, you've got 1 foot in independent sponsor land, 1 foot in search land. A lot of searchers approach you wanting to be you. What's a piece of advice that you give to those folks? Any more that you could share?
Yeah, I think something that I like to share with them is kind of related to all those quotes about like creating your own odds. I tell them that, hey, you're going to give yourself a year, 2 years, 3 years to go out and search for a business, find an opportunity and close it. At the end of those 3 years, you want to be able to look at yourself in the mirror, and you want like an unbiased third party to be able to look at your efforts and all the time and hard work and meetings and phone calls that you put in, and be willing to like make the bet that the odds were way more likely than not that you closed a deal. I don't know if that was said as eloquently as I wanted to, but you really just want to put in that effort to where someone would almost be flabbergasted of going, whoa, he did not close a deal after all that work, huh? So just almost being obsessive about it, I think, is what it's really got to drive you.
Mm-hmm. Like so many reps, so many attempts, so much effort that it's almost you bend the market to your will, and it's just inevitable that some deal must come along through the volume of effort.
Yeah, just move those odds 10 basis points in your favor every day, every week, or whatever it may be, until it's just way more likely than not that you're going to find something. I think it's out there for everybody. It's just got to put the time and the work in and get your mind right with the temperament of finding a suitable deal. The other thing I tell them is that, hey, if you want to get to the point where you've got multiple businesses, a lot of times that first business, that first acquisition, it's a Trojan horse. Don't buy a bad business. Make sure you're not going to lose money. Make sure you feel like you've got that B plus at least. But it doesn't have to be perfect on that first one. Just get in there with the Trojan horse, get in the game, get a deal done so you can start bringing in kind of some salary or some fees or however it's structured, and just, live to fight another day.
Do you recommend the structure that you had? Because what you did with your investor /friend /mentor is neither the ETA self-funded search model, nor traditional search fund, nor independent sponsor. You guys you came up with your own structure. Do you have strong opinions one way or the other about structure or model of buying businesses?
No, I think everybody's personality is different. Their investors, the business, that those structures can just all take different forms, and you just got to find what works best for you and your capital and the business itself, and hold periods and all those various things that affect it. So no, I don't think ours is the right way necessarily to do it. It just worked for us.
Well, it sure did. So in case the audience has missed it, $500,000 that you have parlayed into 50 and 55 million of revenue prior to the exit. Just what a run in early days still. So really, we were eager to get you on here, Andrew, to hear about this. So thank you for joining us.
I appreciate you guys. I've enjoyed it.
Hope you enjoyed that interview. For more like it, subscribe to the Minds Capital podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. Also check out Minds Capital, where Nicholas and I are partners alongside Max Lummis. We invest equity in independent sponsor deals. So if you're a sponsor with a deal under LOI, please visit mindscapital.co to start a conversation. There's also an investor tab on our website with information about future fundraisers. See you in the next episode.